has a tremendous chus to participate in the chaskus of the Vayichan from Yisrael neged ahol, of us unifying ourselves and getting together, b'miyuchad, especially in this time, which is this man that every Jew has an obligation to refocus their avelus, their mourning over the Beis Hamikdash, over the Siluk HaShechina. So for me to have a little chelik, a little piece, and perhaps b'siyata d'shmaya to be zoichet, to share a little bit of inspiration that I feel during this man, I'm thankful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be part of it. Of course, a Jew has to live year-round with the sense of the Chum Beis Hamikdash. Im lo ya'ales Yerushalayim al lo simchos. Every simcha we go to has to have a zeichel l'chum. Every Jewish home has to have a zeichel l'chum. A Jew is supposed to be living with the constant feeling of that vacuum, of that element that's missing. The plate has to be missing space. Where food normally would be, it has to be visible. That space is empty, even in the plate of food. It's a big shaila in the poskim how relevant that is in today's form of eating. But there isn't an area, there isn't an angle, a chosn before he goes to the chuppah, the happiest day of his life. You put ashes on his forehead. But that's a tall order. It's a very tall order to live in that state. And the further we are from the Churban Beis Hamikdash, and the less of a taste that we feel of that Beis Hamikdash, the harder it is. And as the Gemara says in Bava Basra, and Daf Samach at the end of the third parak in Bava Basra, that to some degree there's a concept of mutuv shiyu shegigim. And ein goizlim gzeira atzibel and ken goiv atzibel yechel ma'amid, that if you would really try to do what we have to do, it would be almost impossible. But during this time, as we're going into the Yemei Achub, there every Jew must, to the best of their ability, refocus. That which, of course, is somewhat in your subconscious year-round about the Churban, and even more so about the cause of the Churban, and in what way possible each individual, each one of us, can participate in the binyan, in the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash. So today I'm going to dedicate my time to connect the concept of Achdus with Hashroas HaShechina, to better understand how these two elements are so integrated, and that you can't really have Hashroas HaShechina in any meaningful way without the Achdus of Klal Yisrael. And this is found in the Chazal, it's found in Medrashei Chazal, found in the words of the Gdolei Rishonim and Achronim, that this is almost a precondition for any milestone we had as a nation. Kabbalas HaTorah, Vayichan Shem Yisrael neged ahol, was a precondition for Kabbalas HaTorah. The Mishkan was put up with the Nedavos of all Klal Yisrael. Everybody had to participate. There's a fascinating Ksav Sefer. The Ksav Sefer is discussing a difficult medrash in Parshas Tchumah. The medrash brings down a three-way machloikes amoraim, tanoim, as far as what is the most captivating pasuk. And one says V'ahavta Lecha Kamoicha, the famous pasuk of Rabbi Akiva. The other one says the pasuk of Shema Yisrael. The last Manda Oma says a very strange idea. He says that this pasuk is describing the Korban Tamid, And this pasuk is the most captivating pasuk in the Torah. It captures the most. And then the Medrash concludes that the halacha is like that opinion, which is a rarity in Midrashim, to conclude with a halacha, especially for a non-halachic statement. But the Medrash says the halacha is like that opinion, and the Medrash brings a pasuk to support. Where Hashem tells Moshe, the way I am showing you the Mishkan, the Tavnis HaMishkan, the structure and the architecture of the Mishkan, and that's the way you should do it. From that pasuk we see that the Talmud is the most captivating pasuk. Obviously, this is a medrash, what we call a medrash kliya. The Ksav Sefer has a fascinating pshat, fascinating idea. The Ksav Sefer says, obviously, v'ahavtecha kamoicha is a tremendous, encompassing pasuk, a pasuk that has such a broad interpretation, which we will discuss today. How broad that interpretation is, that it actually, its net captures even mitzvahs of bein adam l'makom. Obviously, all the mitzvahs of bein adam l'chaverei, but even the mitzvahs of bein adam l'makom. Then we have the pasuk of Shema Yisrael, which is also Kabbalas Hol Malchus Shemayim, which every Jew makabel on themselves 2 times a day. When the Yiddish Neshama leaves the world, we say that pasuk. Obviously, without Yerushalayim, Ma Hashem Elokecha Shoel Nimach, Ki Li'iro Es Hashem. Obviously. Says the Ksav Sefer, the pasuk of Shema Yisrael has a little bit of an addition to V'ahavtecha Kamoicha. And that's the position of the second opinion in the Medrash. That V'ahavtecha Kamoicha only tells you in physical things. Ma da'aloch, Sanya, L'chavrach L'sevet. Be kind to your brother. Don't do upon him something you wouldn't want done to yourself. That's V'ahavtecha Kamoicha. Shema Yisrael, says the Ksav Sefer, which is the Jews' Kabbalas Hol Malchus Shemayim, which is really captured in the last words of Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Those are the 4 words where the Jew is accepting upon himself the Kabbalas Hol Malchus Shemayim. But he starts with the words Shema Yisrael. These 2 words are the introduction to the Kabbalas Hol Malchus Shemayim. Says the Ksav Sefer, that teaches you that Hashem says that when you yourself are makabel hol malchus shemayim, you have to think about your brother. Don't just wake up in the morning and say, I'm interested in my kabbalas hol malchus shemayim. No. I'm accepting for my brother, Shema Yisrael. Hear me, my brother, hear me, Yisrael. And that's the second position in the Medrash. That one must know that there's almost a v'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha in ruchnius, in spirituality. To be concerned, tuned in, and understand that responsibility you have to every Jew. That's the second view. Comes the Ksav Sefer and he says, but there's a third position in the Medrash, which is even more powerful. And the Medrash is saying, if you want to know how far your Achdus must go, if you want to know to what degree you must care, and to say it better, to what degree you must be connected to your brother. Says the Medrash, the korban Talmud wasn't just a korban, where I brought a korban, and I made sure that another Jew had a korban. But no, the money that all of Klal Yisrael put into the korban, in the lishke, where they would deposit the money for the Korbanos Tzibur for the year, wasn't just Reuven and Shimon and Sarah and Rachel being concerned about each other. No. Actually, the Noshim were parted from the actual Machzor Hashem. It was Reuven and Shimon saying We are going to do the avodah together. It's not I'm going to be makabel al malchus shemayim and you're going to be makabel al malchus shemayim. It's we are going to do this as one. That's what the korban tamid was. One korban, one avodah for the entire nation. That is how far the achdus has to go, where we turn into one. The Vayichan tells you concern that one has for the other. The Shema Yisrael tells you the spiritual concern that one has for the other. But the Sakeves Echat says it's not one for the other, it's one. And that oneness is the foundation of who we are as Klal Yisrael. The Am Echad of Klal Yisrael. The Vayichan Shem Yisrael of Klal Yisrael. Says the Ksav Sefer, the Medrash then goes to Paskin. And the Medrash is bothered. Why does the Torah conclude V'chein Tasu, the question that the Rishonim already present? And the Ramban and others. What's the vav? V'chein and. It should say Chein Tasu. What's the V'chein? And this is how. Says the Ksav Sefer, how did we put up the Mishkan? The Mishkan could have been put up by one Jew. Hashem told Moshe, one Jew can afford to put up the Mishkan. But it wasn't that way. Every single Jew, every woman, every man was involved, bringing their material, bringing their buttons, bringing their gold, their copper. It was a communal effort of Gans Klal Yisrael. Why? Because that's how the Rebbeinu Shalom was Mashra Shechina b'Yisrael. The communal effort was a precondition for there to be Hashroas HaShechina. Says the Pasuk, the way I am showing you to build this Mishkan, in unity, as one. V'chein tasu, that's the way you have to keep the entire Torah. What a beautiful idea. And that's why there's the vav. V'chein tasu, apply it. Make an application. Don't limit it to the Mishkan. And that's the idea, says the Medrash, halacha, that's the halacha. So my friends, it's clear that Achdus is everything. It was everything in Matan Torah. It was everything in Hashroas HaShechina and Klal Yisrael in the Mishkan. Rachmana litzlan, in the Churban Beis Hamikdash, it was also everything. The Gemara says in Yuma Daf Tes that the first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because of the Gimel Averis. Those three Averis that we know, every child knows that although every Jewish life is precious, and we desecrate Shabbos and every Isser in the Torah to preserve Jewish life, but still in all, the Gimel Averis, those three, the three big ones, Gil Arayas, Shvichas Damim, and Avodah Zarah, under no conditions is one prohibited to transgress them. And even if it's a question of giving up one's life. Those three Averis existed during the Churban, during the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash. And for that we went into Golus for 70 years. The second Beis Hamikdash, the Gemara discusses what was the Chet. What was the Avera? And the Gemara says it was Sinas China. We were lacking in our Achdus. And because we were lacking in our Achdus, we lost the Beis Hamikdash. Says the Gemara, Loin is Gala Kisam, the second Beis Hamikdash, where the Avera was in hiding. The end of that Golus is also in hiding. It has not been revealed. The Bayis Rishon, the Averis were revealed, and just as the Averis were revealed, so too has the end of that Golus been revealed. And there was a prophecy, there was a nevuah. Whereas the Bayis Sheni, we weren't privileged to have a recorded ending to the Golus. It's fascinating that Achdus plays such a critical role that it's elevated beyond the level of Gilai Raya, Shvichas Damim, and Avodah Zarah. How do we wrap our heads around this idea? And that's really what I wanted to share with all of you. You don't need a share in the importance of Achdus. It's calling out from every corner of Torah. I'm going to try to give you today, with the help of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a better understanding as to why it's so pivotal. Not that it is, but why is it so pivotal? And perhaps with a better understanding of why it is, it'll be easier for all of us to embody true Achdus. In the mitzvah of Vayichan, we find a very strange thing. There's a matching pasuk to V'ahavta l'reacha that Rashi, in several places, Rashi in Mishlei alludes to this idea, but Rashi in Masechah Shabbos says it clearly. That there's some kind of connection between these two psukim that refer to loving your friend. The pasuk in Mishlei says, in Perek Vov, talks about Reyacha, your friend, V'reya Avicha, and the friend of your father. Reyacha V'reya Avicha. Talking about the importance of that love. The pasuk in the Torah, Pashas Kedoshim, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You should love your brother like you love yourself. Ma'adesan yiloch lechaverecha lo savit. And the Gemara in Masechah Shabbos states that Hillel used this pasuk and this mitzvah as a way of bringing in that ger that wanted to learn or understand or keep the entire Torah on one foot. And he told him, this is the mitzvah. This is the mitzvah. Keep this mitzvah. And with this mitzvah, you'll be able to encompass the entire Torah. So Rashi over there states that that is found over there. Rashi says, he brings the pasuk in Mishlei that is referring to Hashem. And Rashi Mishlei explains that Hashem loves us. He's our Reya. And the Reya Avicha, Rashi says, he chose our fathers. He was Boicher in the Avos. He chose the Avos HaKadosh. It's very difficult to understand. How do we connect these two ideas? How do we connect the idea of Avas Hashem, of our connection to HaKadosh Baruch, in the word Reyacha, and that it somehow connects to the V'ahavta l'reacha of Parshas Kedosh. Another fascinating idea is found in Parshas Re'eh, where the Torah in Parshas Re'eh talks about us going in the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the pasuk states, Acharei Hashem Elokeichem telechu, v'oisoi tilo. You should go after Hashem. You should fear Him. You should keep His mitzvahs. But obviously, what's blurry, what's unclear is what does it mean go after Hashem? And the last words are also difficult. And you should cling to Hashem. That's what the pasuk says here in Parshas Re'eh. So this is not my observation. The Gemara in Sotah Daf Yudalit questions, what does this pasuk mean? Could a person go after the Shechina? And the Shechina is says the Gemara, Elo halech achar midoisav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Go after His ways. Mahu malbish agumim. Just like Hashem clothes the naked and brings the pasuk by Adam and Chava. Hafato albish agumim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu biker cholim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mevaka cholim by Avram Avinu. Afato baker cholim. You too. HaKadosh Baruch Hu nicheim avelim. And it brings the pasuk by Yachmos Avram, by Yevorech Elokim es Yitzchak benoi. That was a form of nichum avelim. Afato. So the Gemara in Sotah sees in this dictate of Achar Hashem Elokeichem telechu is to cling to the midos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Go after His ways. In the Maseches Shabbos, which you've all learned in the Daf Yomi, The Gemara actually says a similar idea with a little bit of a different spin. Zekeli vanveyu. Abishol comes and he says, what does vanveyu mean? You should be like him. Vanveyu means have a domeloi. Be similar to Hashem. Obviously the same question. How can you be similar to Hashem? So he says, Mahu chalim v'rachum afato rachum v'chalim. Be like him. Just like he is kind. Just like he has rachamim. You too be racham. And similarly we find in the Sifri, and the Sifri says, Olechas b'chol drochav elu darkei shel mokem. And then it brings a pasuk in Yoel. V'hoya kol asher yikorei b'shem Hashem yimolei. How could you be considered something that's called in the name of God? Elo, what does it mean? Nikra hamokim rachum, afato heye rachum. So there seems to be two ideas being conveyed. One is that these psukim are guiding us on a formula of conduct. To go in a certain way, to behave in a certain way. That's one point that's being conveyed. But then there's another point that's being conveyed. And that is, be similar to Hashem. Cling to Him. It's a relationship between you and Kudsha Brich. And how do you relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? You relate to Him by going in His ways. And forgetting the benefit of these qualities of being Chanun and Rachum and Menachem Avelim and Stoker, forgetting the benefit of these qualities, it's also a vehicle to have a relationship with Kudsha Brich. It's a way to connect to Hashem. And in fact, we see this distinction being brought out in different Rishonim. The Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvahs, by the Mitzvah Hashmini, he writes, HaMitzvah Hashminis, Shetzivonu HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded us lehidomo isloi, to be similar to Him, lefi yicholtenu, to the best of our ability. V'hu omru v'alachta b'drochav ma'Kadosh Baruch Hu nikrochanu. That's how the Rambam goes. The Smag in his mitzvahs, in Mitzvah Zayin, he writes a little differently. Lo leches b'drochav ha'toivim v'ha'yishorim shenema v'holachto b'drochav holoich acham midoitzev, and he quotes the Gemara in Sotah. So this already is observed by the Shloach HaKodesh in Parshas Vayichan. The Shloach HaKodesh writes that we see that there's a distinction between the Smag, the way the Rambam brings down the mitzvah, and then the Shloach HaKodesh concludes that it's Elu ve'elu divrei l'kim chayim, and he brings down these two chazals. But really, this is fascinating. This is beyond. This is beyond fascinating. For one to think that they can have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu without embodying His characteristics is completely misguided. Chazal are telling us that that is the essence of one's relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So as much as people may think you go in the woods and you make his this and you talk to God and you do all you, which is all nice things if it's done healthy in a healthy way, that's not the vehicle that Chazal are telling us to connect to Hashem. That is not the vehicle. The vehicle to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is only one, and that is a characteristic connection. And that is why there's a connection between Reyecha Zu HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Reyecha, of course, your friend. And by you connecting to your friend, you're really connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because by you connecting to your friend and embodying that dedication, devotion, and care, which is the characteristics of Kudsha Brich Hu, that itself connects you. According to the way we're explaining it, it's very simple. The whole godliness of a human being is those characteristics. That's your way to become a tzelem elikim. That's everything. That's all you are. The Alter from Kelm used to say that the Churban Beis Hamikdash didn't happen because there was an oynish for sinas chayil, a punishment of sinas chayil. No, it was not a punishment. It was the effect, the consequence of sinas chayil. And the way we're understanding it now, it's very clear. Hashroas HaShechina is the ultimate relationship between us and Hashem in a revealed way that can only be built on Mahu Chanun of Atochan and Mahu Rachum of Atorachum. That is the marriage. That's the essence of this marriage. And the sinas chinam is there is no relationship. It is the essence of every connection that you have to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is why the consequence, not a question of punishment. Perhaps the punishment for the Gimel Averis will be more severe than sinas chinam. Perhaps. But the consequence of sinas chinam is that you have destroyed those options and those methods that you have to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is the consequence of sinas chinam. And I will end with this idea. This is a beautiful story I always say over by me in the shul. There were two Gedolei Rabbonim, Rav Moshe Kaliris and Rav Zerian, Zichron Tzadikim Levracha. They were both head Rabbonim in the city of Tveria. The story is found in the Sefer Zutu Shel Noah, and Rav Yitzchok Zilberstein Shlita brings it down in his Sefer Tufchi Abiyum Parshas Bamidbar. But according to what we just said, the story becomes so clear. The story was that there was a shaila about the Erev in the city. Rav Zrian was the chief, like Sfardi Rav, and Rav Moshe Kaliris was the chief Ashkenaz Rav. And there was a question before Shabbos about the Erev, right before Shabbos. And Rav Zrian issued a psak that the Erev was okay. The Erev was kosher. When Rav Moshe Kaliris heard about what the issue was and what the psak was, it became very clear to him that there was a little bit of an error based on a particular sugi and Erev. He said nothing. Shabbos, he made his way during Shabbos to his dear Yedid, Rav Zrian. He said, perhaps we could learn a little bit together, the sugi and Erev. They sat together. Boine v'soiser, building and taking down. Kedarka shel Torah. And at the end of the discussion, Rav Zrian looks at Rav Kaliris. He says, my friend, my Yedid Nemon, I made a mistake. The psak that I issued about the Erev, I'm taking it back. Rav Kaliris nodded. He said, but tell me, my dear friend Rav Moshe, why didn't you make an announcement? Why did you let people know? And Rav Kaliris said, I made my own psak halacha. My psak halacha was that kovod HaTorah is the Raisa and Hilchos Erevin is the Rabbonim. And because I have a certain understanding in this sugya that I feel this is what the Erev should be, which is a rabbinic question, I wasn't going to jeopardize the kovod HaTorah of you, my friend Rav Zrian. That wasn't on the table. What a meridik at mice. Imagine today having such a mice. But really, this is our connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Our Bein Adam L'Chaver is our connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. My friends, as we go into this time period, we must all commit that we are going to be Vanvehu. We are going to fortify our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the only way to strengthen that relationship is Hevei Doimeloi, Uboy Tidbok, Achrei Hashem Lekechem Teilechu. It's a relationship that's built on character. And we should all be Zoiche, as we embody the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will b'mheira v'yomeinu mashre shchinosai b'Yisrael b'binyan beis mikdashenu al tila soifa kates l'chol tzoriseinu tchila v'rosh l'pidyon nafshenu. Amen.